welcome back to AR Sales, aka the ART podcast. I am AR Mirabal, and today we are joined by Kylie Woods. You may know her as KM Woods on Instagram, on TikTok, wherever you may find her on the web. She is the fantasy romance creative mind juggernaut behind Song of Shadow and Light, coming out, I believe, October 15th, correct?
Yes, October 15th.
October 15th, pre-orders are out now. I actually just put a story on the ART podcast Instagram. She's doing a cool giveaway. First 50 get this awesome art print. Make sure to check that out. I love little things like that. I love when you just incorporate merch and these little things in order to get more engagement, in order to just give like your day one some love. I love that, honestly. So without any further ado, Kylie, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I am outstanding and improving, or at least pretending to be.
I am not gonna lie, I'm slightly hungover, so we are functioning. We're faking it till we make it.
Exactly. I'm not hungover, but I'm like that. I'm like the opposite of hungover. You know when you drank the last day, like the day before, and you went to sleep fine, then go to sleep drunk, and you just wake up like, hey, yeah, life's good.
Yeah. We have on TikTok, we have Saw Dude Saturdays. So we all get on live and dress up as frat boys and end up drinking a lot. So that was last night. So now I'm trying to function this morning.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I was mixing tequila with rum yesterday. So
we love it.
We were out here. But moving on to the book. Mm-hmm. How did you get your start in fantasy romance? Was it a young thing? Did you pick up a certain book, or was there a certain author that just tickled your fancy? I've never said that phrase, by the way, before on the podcast. I feel a little icky. I feel like I should take a shower afterwards. But is there anything that caught your eye when you were younger that made you really love the genre?
When I was younger, my family, we were big Harry Potter people. Like my mom would read Harry Potter to us all the time because my siblings have a different dad, so we would travel back and forth a lot to like take them to their dad, and that would be like the one thing she would always either have playing or like reading to us is Harry Potter. And so that ended up moving into, like, as I got older, I really got into like sci-fi. So I was like, I loved like Divergent and like the Hunger Games, and I was pushing more towards those genres, but I stopped reading for like a really, really long time. I stopped reading, I stopped writing, and then I just decided to pick up an SJM book last year. And I just fell in love. I deep dived, I read all of her books and was completely just entranced in that world. And so then that's when I started writing again. I found that passion again and just started putting words on paper. So
that's phenomenal. That's honestly phenomenal. I've always like when people always like ask that idea of like, oh, like why writing? Where did that come from? I always like akin it to like a serial killer. It's like one day it's like the fantasies are just not enough, you know? You can't just like fantasize about all these like things that you have in your mind when you're reading a book or when you're watching a movie that like is in the like, you know, let your mind wander. At one day it's just not enough. You have to like really start just, all right, even if no one is going to read this, even if there's just like a thing that me and my friends are going to go and geek out about, I need to start writing. I need to start doing this thing that I love. That's phenomenal. I love hearing those type of stories. And specifically Hunger Games. I adore Hunger Games. I have the books in my bookshelf right now. I mean, that series is unreal. And she knocked all 3 books out in a year. Do you know that? She wrote them all in a year.
I didn't know that. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Congratulations to her.
She's a legend. She is a legend. Like, honestly, this podcast, I need to have like a hall of fame behind me of like, you know, like just like authors that are just like murdering the game. And she is up there. That woman is unreal. And
yeah, I wrote Song of Shadow and Light in 2 months and then went through my whole editing process and everything.
2 months. Talk to me about that process. How did that happen?
I just got really hyper focused. I came up with an idea and then I just started writing and then I couldn't stop. And every day I was in my office writing away. Anytime I had a break at work, I was writing and adding in more because I literally was consumed by it. Like the thoughts and the ideas just kept coming and I couldn't get it to stop. So I had to put them down. And so it took 2 months, wrote the whole first manuscript, did revisions, sent it to an editor, had some beta readers, and then got it out by October this year.
My God, that is fun. I mean, I really need to have like a soundboard and just like have like applause, because one hand clapping isn't, well, it's two hands clapping. We go one person clapping isn't enough for that. We need like an audience of people going, because that is phenomenal. For any person that is listening as just a reader, 2 months is nigh impossible, to the point that I just used the word like nigh, and I'm not from the 1400s. It is truly a remarkable thing, and it makes me wonder, getting a little like personal, do you have ADHD?
Oh, yes, massively.
Yes, me too. That's what people always think, that ADHD means that like you can't focus at all, but what it means that your focus like receptor, like the gauge in your head is just broken, so you can just like lose focus at any time, but then have insane hyper focus when you like something enough. And yeah, I totally vibe with that. That is 100% my writing like standpoint. It's just like I just get consumed by something and just like let it go. Like you don't see me for months, you don't hear about me for months, I just go in.
No, seriously, that's what happened. Like everybody was like, get out of your office, talk to us, and I'm like, I can't. No. I have to do it. I have to get it done.
And it's funny too, especially like I mean, I guess like maybe like it's different for different generations or different people, but like I know, you know, just being in like, and I don't, even now I'm getting to the tail end of my 20s, but still, when I would tell my friends, oh yeah, I'm writing, it's like it wasn't like validated in their head. It's like, you're writing, let's go to a bar. That's not a valid excuse. A valid excuse is like you're you know, you're too hungover, you're doing something. Like writing isn't, that's not an excuse to not go out. And it's just like, yeah, listen, even if I were to go out, I'm not going to be the like my version of you that you think I'm going to be. I'm going to be in my head still. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, nobody really like was letting me use that as an excuse, I guess, or like a reason, like a valid reason why I didn't want to go out, until now, where they see like I have a book tangible in hand, and they're like, oh, she's actually like, this is like a career for her. Like she's actually doing this. Like it's not just her just playing around and wanting to write. It's like, so now it's like, now everybody's like, oh, okay, she's writing. Like, yeah, it's all right. She doesn't want to come out. It's okay.
Yeah, you gotta love how the turnaround happens. But my God, is it a annoying hill to climb when you're first going through it, because you have like the initial. I mean, I think that's why the writing community on Instagram and like BookTok and all those things were phenomenal, because it was like, oh, okay, there's people that like not only would accept that, but like also do this and think it's awesome and like, you know, support that type of effort. But at first it's like, it's such an annoying battle. Like knowing that you also went through that is such an interesting idea, because do you think any of those energies kind of reflected into the writing?
I think that there is aspects to it, like necessarily like the villain in my story. I have taken experiences in my life from that I've actually experienced myself and implemented that into the villain of my story. And he definitely has that like snarky attitude that all my friends were giving me. Like, you're really not going to come out with us because you want to write. Like, and he definitely has that attitude. Yeah. So I can say like, yes, in that way it's kind of incorporated a bit, but it never affected me personally. Like, if you're going to give me attitude, whatever, I'm going to still stay home and write. It's like, it's still going to happen.
Yeah. And I mean, I know it affected me just because in that way of like that perseverance, like that feeling of like, oh no, yeah, I'm going to continue doing this, that definitely reflected in the character, which is ironic because as you're writing this character that you designed to be like, you know, pig-headed and keep on going with something, you're literally in order to write it, in order to finish the process, you have to go through it yourself. So it's interesting that the type of things that you go through even as you're writing and how they actually affect the writing in every sense. So one thing that I've loved, I mean, you come from a very well-regarded from Keylee Hargis, which is, you know, like a huge, you know, she's been on the podcast 3 times, just had her last week. If you haven't watched that episode, make sure to do so. And in that episode, we specifically had a little tangent about you and how everything that you're doing and all the way that you're reaching out and doing these things. You know, you had the Saw Dude Saturdays, you have Book and Beer, I believe.
Yeah, Books and Beers is a It's a interview live on TikTok by one of my friends, Jen. And like every Thursday, she brings on authors and she interviews them and asks them questions about their book and all of these kinds of things. And she was one of my ARC readers. So she was very excited to get me on there. So I did books and beers with her.
So how have you been treating the marketing side of anything? Because everyone that I've talked to that like likes writing, we all like writing, we all like reading, but the main thing that everyone is just like, oh, but marketing, that's the villain of all our books. Know what I mean? So how are you handling that? How are you engaging your readers in ways?
So I also hate marketing. I cannot stand it. But I am a cosplayer. So I have done cosplays for characters of my book, and I use that kind of as a way to promote my book as well. And I've also done like little mini trailers on like TikTok and stuff to grab people's attentions, or I'll post like little snippets on my Instagram of my book. And that's kind of like where I've seen the most engagement. But the cosplay is usually like the one that like, that's where everybody's like, I love this. So that's where I kind of, that's my specialty there for marketing.
Man, that is phenomenal, because one thing that I've really loved about like your friend group, I would say, you know, like everything that you guys are doing in a unison, not even just in unison, but you yourself, because you're also doing the, I believe, I definitely might butcher the books, gowns, and crowns, right? The
Yes.
event, yes. Keylee actually turned me on to that idea. First time I had ever heard of that event, and I love the concept of it, just how it's like shifting the paradigm of like the industry in altogether. You know, like before, authors were like these recluse people, you knew nothing about them, and now it seems to be shifting in like the way of almost a music industry, where like people care about the authors, they want to know about the authors, they care about the well-being, and they want to meet them.
Yeah, now, it's definitely becoming a community for sure.
Yes, and honestly, I love that, because you know, when the tide rises, all boats go with it. You know, when Keylee gets like massive success, all that success goes on to you. It goes, and your success goes on to your friends, and that's a phenomenal way to approach it, especially when you have events like that that bring not only authors together, but you have readers together, and it's all on top of that themed. It's like you couldn't get, in my opinion, you couldn't get cooler than that, honestly. And like the fact that like these things are just progressing and going in that way, it blows my mind. And I have to ask, are there anything else that's like going on in that like level of regard? Is books, gowns, and crowns the only thing going on? Because I'm a novice with this. I didn't know people were doing this cool stuff.
So there's a lot of events. I've still waiting to hear back from a few whether or not I will be attending. Books, Gowns, and Crowns is definitely what I'll be attending in May next year, but there's also Book Bonanza, and there's a Polycon, and I have some Comic Cons here that people go to, and you know, for books and things like that as well, that I reached out to. But we, Keylee and I and our friend B, are doing our own ball, actually, which is a Land of Dreams ball.
Why?
So we're doing a Land of Dreams ball in 2024. So we're actually doing it following the same kind of idea, having authors, vendors, artists, influencers, and it's just going to be a big masquerade ball. So we are doing that. That's what we are in the process of planning right now.
Oh my God. You know what I'm doing? I'm shaving my legs. I'm getting a gown. I'm showing up. That's it. Yeah, got me. No, but honestly, it almost makes me nerd out a little bit. I'm seeming a lot more calm than I'm feeling right now, because that is just God. Like it makes me like so like it's actually weird. I never had that. Like I can only think of the Spanish word orgulloso. It's like overjoyed. You know, like I'm overjoyed. It's like I love that this is happening to like. And I'm not even in your group, you know, like I'm not in the group, but like the fact that it's happening to authors in general, that people like care about us, that like people want to like put these type of efforts into things. People love J.K. Rowling. I don't know if J.K. Rowling would have been able to do this like when she was in her 20s or whatever. Like it's just, like I love how things are shifting. So one thing that I definitely want to get into now that like, you know, we've talked about like how things like went for you and how things started, is how did the concept of this book become? Like the book in itself.
I have gotten this question so much, but I really don't know. I just started thinking about it. And then one idea came, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I can add this idea in by just blending it together. And it literally is just like, I don't know, maybe my ADHD superpower, but like I just sat there and all the ideas were flowing and I just brewed them together. I knew I wanted to write something. I knew I wanted it to be fantasy, but I didn't know what. And then it just started coming to me. I honestly think I maybe dreamt it.
That's phenomenal.
So I have dreams all the time. That's ends up what I write is because I just have weird dreams. I end up writing about them.
No, my first book that I literally, it happened in a dream, and it took me a year in order to piece together what that dream was. And at the end of it, I was like, okay, now we can go from here. But like I love that concept. And just, for any astute watchers right now, there's definitely a Wiccan board behind. We were talking about it before the recording, so it immediately makes me think that you're into the whole magic scheme as well. Did you incorporate that into your writing?
So in book one, it focuses around the main character. That we mention a certain witch in the story, but she's going to become more relevant in the further books. But she's definitely mentioned in the first book, and there's definitely talk of like gods and how they're worshipped, which plays into like deities and things like that are my Wiccan side. So the witchy stuff will come. We'll see more of her amazing, terrific powers that she has coming in the next books.
So without giving too much away, because you already know the deal, folks, October 15th, mark the calendar down like it was your best friend's birthday. Stop playing. Get the pre-orders now. If you are within the first 50, you get a free art print, and it looks dope. I've already looked it up. Again, the story is on the Instagram. Check it out. If you don't, just straight go to her Instagram. Information will be below. Make sure to get on that. By the time this episode releases, it'll be like a week and a half before the book comes out. So make sure to set your calendar dates. But without giving too much away, what is the book about? Who is the main character?
So the book is about, it follows a girl named Amelia. Amelia is actually, I described her after my best friend. So she follows Amelia, who is basically living a life where she's been told numerous amounts of lies. And she is starting to, it's kind of like a coming of age, discovering herself, figuring out, and like she's unraveling all these lies and finding out who she is with inside them. Then there is a series of attacks on multiple royals throughout Arrows, which is the continent. And now that she's uncovered these lies and she's in a position of power, she now is responsible for trying to uncover the multiple attacks and what's happening. And there's a little bit of romance, a little bit of smut, a little bit of a friendship, and just fun, cute moments throughout as well. But she's also battling with this kind of, she doesn't know who she is anymore because her life has been flipped upside down. So we see a lot of that as well.
Where do you draw inspiration from that? Because I feel like that is like I feel like every heart of something, of like a book, like Harry Potter, for example, like the orphan like thing, all those things come from very personal or like very consequential event within like their author's like life. Would you say that you experienced something similar to that, like feeling like you've been lied to a lot, or is it just like a general feeling? Because I mean,
no, I definitely I grew up in a family of addicts, so lies were something that was a regular thing in our household. And so I definitely took that mental health and those experiences of my own and implemented them into her. And I know it sounds weird, but strong in that even she struggles with her mental health. Yes. So that's where that came from for her, was what I've been through. So I
mean, I loved that turning of those type of things though. Like, to me just speaks like to like how amazing like life is and how writing is, that you are able to take those type of things that buckle a person, and you're able to use it as a a jumping stone instead. You know, you can like use it to like elevate yourself, and even better is that you're able to take those experiences, and now a person reading this that maybe is going through this at in their own way, and like or in different ways, but they feel similar. Now they can read it and be like, oh man, well now I'm not alone. And now you have a connection that transcends just reading and a person liking your characters or your set pieces. Now you have a connection that is almost metaphysical. And to me, that's the heart of what writing is. You know, I've never met the authors that I grew up in like love, but like I feel connected. I feel like if I were to die and I was you know, we're gonna be hanging out having coffee talking about the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy with Adam Douglas, like that's phenomenal. It's something I truly believe in, because you just made that type of connection.
Yeah, that's a big thing for me, because like I incorporate like LGBT in it. I incorporate like POCs in my writing. I incorporate, because those are all things that surround my life. You know, me myself, I'm not a person of color, but I have 2 nephews and a niece who are my little mixed brown babies, and I love them. And so it's important for me to put, even if it's in subtle ways, to put that recognition out there for someone like who may grow up and doesn't see that recognition of themselves in a book, like to be able to see that and be like, oh my God, there's this badass mixed girl and she's a siren and she is out here killing everyone.
Yeah.
Like, so, and then myself, I am bisexual and I'm married to a woman. So that is something important as well that I needed to incorporate into my books, because it's something I experience daily with myself. So those are all big things that were important for me to hit throughout my series.
My God, I can't tell you how much I love that, because just like going at it like author to author, there are a thousand times that you have your characters created, but then when you're writing a scene, you're like, oh wait, yeah, there's a mailman, or like, oh well, they have to talk to a clerk of something, and you always have that thing of like, all right, well, we can just make it like what I've seen 1,000 times is like, oh, but we can make it something else though. We can have like a little bit more representation. Like I remember I was writing a random scene where I needed to write like an engineer, and I was like, oh well, what? And then I had to think about this random engineer that's going to be for one scene. What am I gonna? What can I make it? I just thought of making like a throwaway, and I was like, oh no, we're gonna make it, because everyone has like a relative the same skin tone in like the book that I've written, but this girl specifically is like dark skinned, and like she, you know, and she's like, you know, like this big, you know, dark skinned woman, and she's like very like extremely like beyond intelligent, and she's talking to a person that is so below her like standard but way higher in like, you know, position and rank. So like she just has to like dumb herself down, and it's one of those things that just that one little tweak actually made her one of my favorite side characters that I've written about. And she's in the book for maybe a couple of scenes, maybe a couple like lines, and that's it. And you know, that's why I truly appreciate those things like that, like the siren being a person of color. That's a beautiful concept. And again, I can only imagine how you'll continue on with that, because it's just the beginning, right? The tip of the glacier. We're just going to keep going down, or however they go. You start from the bottom of the glacier. I mean, I'm not that good of a swimmer, but plus cold. I mean, not for me. But how do you think you're going to progress? Because I do love the naming structure. A Song of Shadow and Light. One thing I have like insane like 3D chess conversations with my author friends about is like name. It's like a name can sound cool, but it's not necessarily within your genre, right? Like you can name your book I don't know, Red versus Blue, Who Will Die, whatever the hell, and that might sound like a cool cover, but if you're writing a romance, it's like, oh well, it's gonna, or if you read it, you know, it has to be like also within the genre. This is perfect because it's not only catchy, but it's very hard to not like read that and be like, oh, this is definitely with it. This is fantasy. Like you know the genre just from the name. I think that's a very rare thing to like hit, and you really hit it in every conceivable level from my point of view. So how do you come up with that? How did you come up with that naming structure?
So the whole series is called the Orchestra of Divinity series.
Jesus.
And it I came up with Orchestra of Divinity because I am a massive theater nerd. So the entire series is named after something that has to do with theater.
Huh.
So so I have Song of Shadow and Light, and I can announce this to you because by the time you put this out, I'll have already released it. But the title of book 2, Dance of Smoke and Flame. So everything is going to be like theater based. And so that's where I came up with that series name, is because just I'm a total theater nerd.
Oh my God, I love this. So the sequel is going to be a continuation of the story. Okay. And as you already said, we're getting more of the witchy stuff in the second book with the power, the expansion of all that. My God, I love all this. So one thing that I always like to kind of define is the fantasy aspect. You said that it's called Eros. Is this a fantasy realm? Is it a different thing, or is it like almost dystopian in a sense that like it's, you know, the land is like where, you know, South Texas used to be, but now it's called Eros after, you know, millions of years of apocalypse or whatever it may be?
So the it's not really a spoiler because I mentioned it in the beginning of the book, so it's not much of a spoiler. Basically, what happened is, like the story goes, it's kind of like a legend that multiple universes were, or multiple planets were destroyed in a battle, or like it was like a godly battle, and people fled searching for sanctuary somewhere, and they found Thera, which is the planet, and found refuge in the continent Eros. And that's how we came to have multiple different creatures in Eros. So there's humans and there's different creatures as well in Eros.
Damn, that's good.
So I created a little sci-fi moment with it.
No, but that's really good, because usually like the whole thing on like magic and like, you know, that type of like thing is usually like chalked up to like, oh well, you know, they exist but you just don't see them. But like you put in because I don't know, my type of brain, it's like it just like works when those type of things are like laid out. But like okay, I mean, that's beautiful. Now like at any time you introduce any character, it's not like, oh, now she's throwing this in there too. It just makes sense. Like you set yourself up for anything you can do, anything that you want to do in the future, which is just chef's kiss, beautiful. Perfect. Honestly, just author, it's just like you got to give it up when like a good like setting that like is brought up like that. That is just perfect. So I have to ask, in what ways do you almost want to challenge yourself for book 2? Like, what is it that you've the challenge in writing the first book is in itself, it's writing a book, right? So now that you've done that, what do you want to see in the future? Like, do you want to incorporate more of a certain type of scene? Do you want to incorporate more of a certain type of character? We already talked about the inclusion and how that will progress in the future, and as far as like the magic system as well. But how do you want to progress just in yourself and your own writing ability?
I want it to get longer. Like I want to write longer. So book 1 is about 400 pages, but I want to be able to push myself to write a longer book, but still not make it seem like there's so much unnecessary information. Because like my book 1, that was a big thing, is like I'm a reader and I hate world building. Can't stand it. I cannot stand endless world building where there's so much that it's just taxing to get through.
Yeah.
So my book 1 is shorter because I lay out the entire world for you before you even get to the first page. So it's got all the description. It has who lives in each region, what each region does, like has everything laid out. So I could go into more detail in the book, but didn't have to write everything out one by one. So that's why book 1 was shorter. So I'm wanting to push myself for like book 2 and 3 and make them longer, but without having that unnecessary detail. Like it's just jam-packed with like action and romance and fun. Like that's what I want it to be. You
see, like if like to use like the analogy of like an investor room, right? If you were like a company and you were like telling your investors that this is where the room goes, like crazy. You're basically saying that for the same level of what you're doing now, right? Like when the book comes out, relatively same pricing, you're going to get more book than you did the first time. But like, you're just getting more as you go along. You're getting more as a reader. Like, there's nothing better, honestly. And especially with all the world building that you have, and just the base of world building. I can't even say like the entire thing in itself, but just the base that you created, that all these different creatures that flow. You have a lot to work with. You have a lot to do.
Yeah.
So now that we're approaching the end of the podcast, and it has been a phenomenal recording. Thank you for everything so far. I definitely want to turn it over to you and just give you your moment for any level of promotion. Is there anything that you want to promote that we haven't talked about yet? Anything that you're doing, anything that you're doing in the future? This is your time, and me and the listeners would 100% love to hear whatever it is that you're working on.
So we've talked about, Song Shadow and Light and moving forward with that. We also discussed the ball we're having in 2024. So they're like some things we discussed and are really big things that are happening. But Keylee and I are actually writing a book. So we are writing a fantasy book called The Dragons.
Oh my God.
So we're currently in the process of that right now.
Say that title one more time.
The Fall of the Dragons.
The Fall of the Dragons, folks. My God, Keylee and Kylie come together. It's like that, however fantasy you want, like Wonder Twins coming together, Goku and Vegeta doing that ding, ding, ding. We're getting a crazy evolution here. Two, honestly, just insanely creative fantasy romance authors coming together to make another one. I feel like DJ Khaled, and we got another one, and we got another hit. It's going to be phenomenal. And, just to promote it even further, very, very much on TikTok, Sawdude Saturdays. Make sure to check that out. And again, Instagram, just make sure to do whatever you can in order to follow her. All the content she's been posting has been phenomenal. And giveaways are on the way, folks. Mm-hmm. This is definitely one of those type of authors that does a lot of promos, a lot of engagement. So make sure to engage, become a fan, get in the ARC list, whatever it is. If you are a lover of fantasy and romance, if you FW, because I don't want to swear too much on this podcast anymore. If you are down, right? If you get down, if you're jiggy with Keylee, I have no doubt you're going to be into Kylie M. Woods. Make sure to hop on it. Again, thank you so much for having us on. Can you imagine? Thank you so much for coming on and talking with us and just getting weird, getting personal, talking about what you love in your book. And I hope that we can do this again. I have actually something that I want to do called the Romance Groupcast, where I bring I believe Tristan Clark and Keylee already agreed to it. And if you want to join and maybe like a fourth person, we just all get together and we just talk about romance and the genre. Not like we're talking about like, last week. Well, we talk about everything. We just get down and we do it over wine.
I am totally okay with that. I am a wine drinker till the day I die. So.
Yes. And honestly, every time we've had this, it's genuinely so much fun. It just gets catty real quick, and we just starts like it just becomes such a vibe. I love it. I haven't done it in a while, and I definitely want to do it with y'all because your group is a vibe. It's cool. I definitely love it. So again, thank you. This is going to be the end of the podcast. A.R. Tales, aka the A.R.T podcast. I've been A.R. This has been KM. Make sure to check it out. Song of Shadow and Light, October 15th. Stop playing. Pre-orders now. We will see you next week. Peace out.